Is that what it takes to go on this journey and stick with it and have the grit?
Yeah.
You got to be crazy.
Crazy
To
or
some
just
degree.
dumb enough to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And that's really the story of Hoist. We at every step along the way, we haven't known what we're doing. It's figuring it out day by day, and it's painful at times. It's and I'll let Ben explain more of our, as we talked earlier, where we went from hangover to medicinal type drink to now we're with finally we had a calling of the military that's really helped us out. But again, we knew absolutely nothing of any of those stages, and it's just how do you butt your head against the wall daily to figure out how to do it, and it's luckily he's crazy enough to keep doing it.
Yeah, I love the word no. I mean, to me, it's just it excites me because no is not a viable outcome. There's always a way to get to a yes, right? And I'm willing to put forth the effort to get there. And I've over the course of the years, I think I've found ways to navigate that. But this journey has been told no a million times. But I will say, in the history of this thing, is as you referenced earlier, there was the hangover component, and there were some pretty brilliant ideas along the way with branded El Caminos that would run around Mount Adams at 2 a.m. and handing out bottles to those that were out living the
was
nightlife.
fun.
It was a lot of fun. And I'll never forget, we were in a Wrexham Slim can that's synonymous with energy. And as I look back at mistakes along the way, that was one, because there are still people in Cincinnati today that reference Hoist as an energy drink, and that was because they associated that can with energy. So again, one of the early learnings, but I think we recognized that we were seeing success on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays as the revelers were out. But we knew that if indeed this was to be a brand for which we could scale and be proud of, that it would have to mature as we were as well. And I think the crowning moment for us was the recognition that the Marine Corps were power consumers of Pedialyte, right? And the moment that we heard that, I think we thought, ooh, that's our lane, because I can't fathom that there's a Marine out there that's proudly carrying an infant hydration bottle that's square medicinal packaging. It's expensive, it doesn't taste good, and you got to go to the diaper aisle to buy it. And I think all of us thought, man, that doesn't sound like a Marine to me. And I think it was a simple concept of, we know that the science of this liquid is adequate for that channel. So how is it that we go about getting that? And Kelly and I went and met with a guy by the name of Tom Such in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Did a little bit of Google research about getting products within the military.
Government contract, man, it's tough, isn't it?
We didn't know anything.
We're in a whole nother business.
Yeah.
Right. And here we are with the retail side of our business, fledgling to some degree. But the military component we grasped onto, and got some advice on how to do it. Went to a couple different trade shows and things of that nature. But 2.5 years, I'd say, was the pursuit at Fort Lee, Virginia. And we were met with every roadblock you could think of along the way. That's government for you, right? Nothing's easy. There's a lot of red tape. But it was perseverance, and we got it. And I don't think we ever realized at the time what that meant to the brand. Yeah. And it took us a little bit while to get there as well, and we can speak to that. But that was the real moment for which this brand then was given a foundation that we could build on. And I often say that a lot of brands paint with a broad brush and attempt to appeal to everyone. We were also guilty of that for a long time, and we'd been given direction from, you name the consultant. Yeah. And Kelly and I are big advocates of soundboards, but sometimes soundboards can be dangerous, right?
And flat out wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. And they're just looking.
We've been driven down the wrong direction a couple of times.
Yeah.
We were just so adamant to make this thing go that if someone had an idea, it was like, let's grasp at that. And this whole thing, I think it didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen by circumstance, but we were blind to what the path was until it hit us in the face.
Do you think maybe that you're blessed and fortunate that was the case? Because if you knew, you wouldn't do it.
Yes and no. I'd say no on the capital front, because there was a lot of money spent, a lot of money wasted, and man, what we wouldn't do to have some of that capital today now that we're on to. But yes, those mistakes were necessary from the learning perspective and just the drive.
You wouldn't have started.
We wouldn't have started, but we've also, the good news for us was that we made so many mistakes in the backyard while incubating that I think it's not as though we're not still capable of making mistakes, and we'll make some as we go for sure. But a lot of those were made here. And I think the best thing we ever did, and I'll credit Kelly for this, was trying to stay somewhat local.
Kind of going back to what you were saying of building your roots here and
Learn it all.
And again,
figured
we
out.
knew nothing about the beverage world, so we would, when we first launched that can, we were in it for 2 to 3 years before changing packaging, and that really, the change of packaging came more from all the consumers telling us what their feedback was, and us going, oh, okay, like, we never thought of that. Like, all right, so maybe we should change it to become more of an everyday drink and not focus just hangovers. And I still remember with the hangover angle, my mom was like, oh, I love telling people that you started a beverage, but then they ask, what does it do? And she's like, I'm so embarrassed to tell people. And I'm like, okay, sorry, Mom.
Yeah, so your son parties a lot, eh?
He has a lot of friends of that ilk.
Yes.
Okay, yes, right?
So I was like, okay, but that was my personal, like, okay, we need to make this a grown-up brand.
Yeah.
And
Mom, we're not in the prohibition anymore.
Yeah.
People drink.
I know.
I want to make them more healthy.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's when we went a complete 180 and went after the medicinal. We started working with Hawksworth, with hospitals, because the formula has always been great. We just haven't known the best way to get it to the consumers.
Is this exactly the same formula as
we-
2009?
We changed it after when we moved from the can to the first little bottle. I wish we would have brought some samples of the ugly bottles we had along
Were they
the
real
way.
small?
The one was a 12-ounce.
It's a shampoo
It looked like
bottle.
a shampoo bottle.
Yeah.
It was.
That
I
sounds
think it
brilliant,
was.
Yeah,
guys.
it was-
Boy, good
oh my
idea, whoever
God.
gave you that one.
We'll send you a link of all the different packaging we have. It's hideous, but you live and you learn, and so each packaging we went about 2 or 3 years in each kind of our iteration, and again it was to hear the feedback of consumers to tell us what we were screwing up and what we were doing good. The formula was always great. People loved it when it was just strictly marketing towards hangovers. People were telling us how much they used it for running a marathon or running whatever, working out, and we were like, really? Like, oh, okay. Like, I guess we can do more things than just hangover. And that kind of gave us the idea of to start to change up. Okay, let's figure out the next phase of this drink. And it was just, as Ben said, we're very lucky. We stayed local. We made a few ventures out, realized
Regionally.
it wasn't ready. So kind of like you were saying earlier, we ventured out, realized they told us nope, so came back. And now that we finally have a brand, so when we finally got the military authorization, we were still in a different bottle. It was more medicinal looking, and people were telling us, we were talking to people about potentially raising money. And we were giving the spiel on the formula, and everyone was like, oh, great. And then when we started talking about the military, they're like, their eyes just opened. They're like, really? And it became a point of everyone was so interested. Once we talked about the military, we were like, all right, we need to rebrand this completely. And that's when we finally, we launched this 2 years ago, I believe.
Yeah.
So,
But all along the way, though, I don't think anything for which we could have done would have mattered. It really just took the segment arriving. And that's when I referenced back to the Pepsi and Coke creating the Gator Lights and the
So
Flash
timing
IVs.
matters.
Look, that we could pioneer all day long and we can sing this story from the mountaintop. But at the end of the day, I'll never forget where I was. I called Kelly from Phoenix, Arizona, outside of a Quick Trip when I saw Gator Light. And most people would have thought, oh, man, what's that like? Did you want to cry? Were you scared? No. I called him and I was like, man, you're not going to believe this. That LYTE is, it's our lane. We don't utilize it, and one could argue along the way we probably would have made our lives easier had we. But that was huge for us, in that we knew that if indeed they've recognized this segment, they would have the power to go to the Krogers and in the big tier 1 retail to say, this segment exists, and it's a lot more entertaining to swim downstream than it is up.
No shit. Right?
And Lord knows we've swum upstream for a decade.
Yeah.
So
at what point are we going to realize, like, hey, we have a choice? It's like we all have the same 24 hours in a day. We all have choices what we're going to put in our body. And these sugary drinks that for so long that we've been putting in, like, at what point are we going to realize, like, hey, you could replace it with, it doesn't just have to be your guy's product, but that's your thing. But at what point are we going to realize, like, we're going to put something better in our body? Like, right?
You like to take that approach to where it's always been the mission to be better and provide people with a solution that that is innovative to what hasn't seen innovation in 40 years, being sports drinks.
However,
but then you see these stories such as Prime, and I'll hold back as best I can.
Is that one of the two brothers that's his brand?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a behemoth.
And I think they just reached $1 billion in sales, which from one perspective that shows you how eager we all have been for solutions beyond Gatorade, right? But on the other hand, it's disappointing in that I included, and consumers we can be jaded so easily with regards to slick marketing that it's an inferior substance to even Gatorade, but yet wildly popular.